Hello everyone and welcome to Medicated Housewife DIY, where crafting and mental health come together. My name is Sarah. In today's DIY video, we are taking this thrifted glass bowl and making it look like wood using paint and alcohol inks. It's my first time using alcohol inks and we'll take this journey together. So stick around and let's go make some stuff and jump right into this. In today's DIY video, we are taking this big glass bowl, thrifted from Goodwill, and turning it into a stunning big wood bowl. What happened was I set out to go to my local Goodwill with every intention of finding something made out of wood, either a bowl or a tray or a platter, just anything made out of wood that I could upcycle and thrift flip and DIY it. But of course, there was nothing at all made out of wood and I was super disappointed. Then I saw this huge glass bowl, and I guess you could use this as some kind of dessert bowl or something like that. And I thought, well, what if I could make that look like the wood bowl of my dreams? So here's what I'm doing. I obviously washed it when I got it home, and then I used an alcohol wipe to thoroughly clean off all the dirt and oils that were on it. After I cleaned it, I took it outside and sprayed it with Rust-Oleum Ultra Cover Paint and Primer Combo in a flat white color. I'll leave the link for that in the description box below. I sprayed both the inside of the bowl and the outside, even the bottom. I did 3 to 4 light coats of paint, leaving several hours in between to fully dry. I then left it to dry overnight after the last coat. So my bowl is fully dry and it has this amazing smooth but like flat textured opaque white color all over it. I did a lot of research on using alcohol inks since I have virtually no experience with them, and watched a lot of videos on doing the wood graining with alcohol inks, and I know a lot of people do this on those resin covered tumblers, but I wasn't so sure how it would work out on glass. But since my thrifted glass bowl cost me $3.99, I was willing to take the risk. I'm using my Lazy Susan so that I can turn the bowl around easily, and I covered it with craft paper and Dollar Tree cutting mats to protect it. I have the bowl upside down, resting on a large container so that the edges will be off the table and so they're not touching anything. I'm using the Ranger inks in the color of teak wood, and I wasn't sure what color I would use, so I bought 6 different browns, all of them really gorgeous colors. I will link the inks below, but I ended up only using one color for the entire bowl, and that was called teak wood. But really, any of those brown shades would work for a wood grain. They're all really gorgeous. I also got a very cheap set of makeup brushes to use for the inks, since all the tutorials I watched recommended I use a soft makeup brush to achieve a wood grain. I'll link this set below, but if you have spare makeup brushes lying around, you could use those too. You will need to get 91% alcohol. The regular rubbing alcohol you get at the drugstore will not work for this. I think that's 70 or 75%. You must get the 91%. It's super cheap at stores like Home Depot. I got this big bottle. That's what we're using to work with the inks. You need to wear gloves the whole time you're working with these inks because they can be very messy, they tend to splatter, and they will stain just like ink because they are ink. I had a small cup with some alcohol in it, a stack of paper towels to absorb the extra alcohol and the inks, and I picked out a couple of different size brushes to work with. Now, the easiest way I can explain the concept of alcohol inks is just like this. It's like watercolor paints, but instead of water, you need the alcohol to work with them. So I dipped my brush in alcohol and then I dried some of it off on the paper towel, shook the bottle of ink and put about 4 drops of ink onto my brush. I also dabbed that onto the paper towel too before I decided to take my first brush stroke. Now, the first thing that struck me when I first started to paint was just how much each of these strokes just naturally went on looking like wood. You do start to almost feel like you can't go wrong. Even the little inconsistencies give the bowl an authentic wood grain look. It's kind of a no-brainer. At this point, I'm starting to wonder, where have these alcohol inks been my whole life? Like, how have I not used these before? The best way to achieve a wood grain look is to do long strokes from top to bottom. And there is this YouTuber named ProcrasCreation, and I am probably butchering that, but she is the best teacher in my opinion on doing wood grains. I watched a bunch of her videos and I will link her channel below because if you are interested in recreating the look of wood on anything, you should watch her videos. She mostly does the wood on tumblers, but all the concepts are the same and you will learn so much, so by all means check her out. When your strokes start to get a little dry, you can dip into the alcohol and then add more ink and dab on the paper towel before resuming the painting. If your color seems too dark or concentrated, you just dip the brush into alcohol, dab it on the paper towel, and then go in with your brush to thin out whatever brush stroke you think needs it. The ink will actually move around under your brush because the alcohol keeps it liquid. It's really cool. I'm just really excited about it. Let me know in the comments what kind of experience you guys have with alcohol inks. Like, I'm really curious if lots of people already use these like all the time and I'm just super late to the party or what. As you can see here, just the action of sliding your brush down the side of the bowl looks like a slice of wood, but you can use more ink and the side of your brush to make lines that will look more wood-like down the side of the bowl too. If you make a mistake, you just wet your brush with the alcohol and paint right through the mistake to break it up. These inks are very, very forgiving. Although you do want to keep your brush somewhat wet in order to move and manipulate the ink, you also have to make sure your brush is not too wet, because if you have too much alcohol on the bowl and you're pushing too hard with the brush, you do run the risk of actually breaking through your white primer underneath, and you don't want to do that. So keep your brush wet-ish, but not soaking. Like, you don't want giant drips of liquid going down the side of the bowl. It needs to be wet enough to move the color around, but not so wet that it drips, if that makes any sense. After I get one nice base coat on the main part of the bowl, I go back again with the large brush and paint another coat of the ink to deepen the color. Now remember, I'm only using one color, it's that teak wood, for the whole bowl. The ink just naturally takes on all different shades as you brush it on. After the second coat, I take a smaller brush and wet it with alcohol and ink, and I make some smaller, thinner strokes where I think they'll look good. That's what I love so much about using these inks, is that there's no rules. You can quite literally do whatever you feel like, and the outcome is still gonna look great. Now, I watched a whole tutorial on making knots in your wood grain, and I thought it would be hard to do, but basically you are pushing ink into a circular, but not a perfectly circular or an oval-ish shape, and then pushing little outlines inside it with your alcohol dampened brush. That's how easy this ink is to continually move around. Again, I highly recommend you watch some of ProcrasCreation's videos. The channel will be linked below. She does several different videos showing the art of making these wood knots. She does it much better than I'm doing it right here. I picked out a couple more spots around the outside of the bowl to make more knots. I just put them wherever I thought that they'd look kind of like they belong there. I then made a couple more knots, mostly because they're just fun to make. And by the way, the YouTube channel I was referring to earlier for all those wood grain tutorials is called ProcrasCreationDIY. So apologies for butchering that name before, and I will link her below. After the outside of the bowl, I painted the bottom of the pedestal, and not because I think anyone will really see it, but honestly, using this stuff is so much fun, I just wanted to. I did one coat, and then I went back over it doing brush strokes from the center of the bottom out toward the outside, and I also made sure to get the edge of the bottom as well. I painted the pedestal itself and the top of the base using short brush strokes, and this part might not look as natural as the rest of the bowl did, but the base and the pedestal still looked pretty good anyway. Then I turned the bowl over and painted the inside of the bowl. I did it pretty similar to the way we did the outside. I used the center of my bowl as the starting point and painted each brush stroke from the middle, brushing up toward the edge of the bowl. So I did the first coat to cover the whole inside, And then I went back and brushed more ink over the first coat so I could deepen the color and to make some wood grain markings and then to add some knots inside the bowl as well. I then took a smaller brush and went over and around the whole lip of the bowl. This ink dries really fast and I opted not to seal it, although I'm told you can seal it using like a Krylon matte sealer type of thing, as long as you do very thin coats and you let it dry completely in between. And this is how my thrifted glass bowl that looks like wood turned out. Now, I know I say this a lot, but I love this. I don't just think, oh, it came out good. No, I love this bowl so much. I think this bowl looks so high-end, like I could see this on display at Restoration Hardware or someplace like that. And keep in mind, this glass bowl was $3.99 at Goodwill. This entire project took about an hour with the alcohol inks. It was incredibly quick to do, minus the spray paint drying time, and the payoff is amazing. I'm telling you, you will fall in love with whatever you DIY with this method. This looks even better in person. It looks like a really warm blonde wood. It even feels a little like wood. It's spectacular. I loved working with the alcohol inks so much, and frankly, I want to wood grain everything in my home that's not nailed down and not already actually wood. I want to do this again, and please let me know in the comments what kind of DIYs using these alcohol inks you'd like to see me do in future videos, because I am doing this again, and soon. I hope you enjoyed this wood grain alcohol ink DIY even half as much as I did. And if you did, please consider liking and subscribing to Medicated Housewife DIY for more fun, easy, and beautiful DIYs. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Medicated Housewife, and crafting is my medication.